This mysterious story forever glorified the small town of Circleville in the American wilderness. The convoluted story resembles a ready-made script for a Hollywood thriller. But all of this actually happened. In 1976, residents began receiving anonymous letters describing all their dirty secrets. Someone knew the most intimate secrets of the recipients and threatened retribution. By the time everyone realized it wasn't a prank, it was already too late. The letters led to inexplicable events, prison sentences, and fear that forever gripped the once friendly town. Since then, about 50 years have passed, but the author of the letters has never been found. In this video we will tell you the mysterious story of Circleville, which is worthy of a full-fledged adaptation. It was 1976, and the small town of Circleville in Ohio, with a population at that time not exceeding 10,000 people, was living its life. It was a quiet and peaceful town until one day everything changed. Several residents received strange anonymous letters revealing their dirty secrets. At first, it all seemed like a silly prank, but soon people realized that it was far from being just jokes. Rumors about these letters spread instantly throughout Circleville. For a simple prankster to know so much personal information seemed suspicious. The key figure in this story became a woman named Mary Gillespie. She hid from everyone else that she also received strange letters containing information that could literally destroy her life. Mary worked at the local school. She drove the school bus there as well. The anonymous sender knew that Mary had a husband and child, and also about her affair with the school principal where she worked. At first, Mary didn't pay much attention to these letters and tried to find out who sent them on her own efforts. In one letter, an anonymous person demanded that she end her extramarital affairs or else her husband would find out. Mary failed to keep her secret, as the letters started coming to their home addressed to her husband, Ron Gillespie. The contents of the letters frightened him. They demanded that he get rid of his wife's lover, otherwise he himself would face death. Mary assured her husband that she didn't know the author or what it was all about. After receiving the information, Ron began to doubt his wife's honesty, but he had no evidence. The couple decided to simply ignore the messages. Gillespie tried to figure out the sender, and Ron's sister's husband, Paul Freshwater, came under suspicion. His wife once voiced her version and said that Paul may be involved in these messages. Shortly before this, Paul filed for divorce and won the right to raise his children. It is likely that his wife Karen decided to retaliate against Paul in this way and falsely accused him of sending the letters. There was no evidence that it was specifically Paul who sent the Gillespie family letters. As another suspect, Mary considered her colleague David Longberry. David courted Mary for a while, but she rejected him. This version also had no confirmation. Soon the family returned to their normal life, and what happened slowly started to be forgotten. On August 19, 1977, something happened that reminded them of their anonymous persecutor again. That morning, the phone rang at the Gillespie family's house, and Ron answered it. A short conversation upset him. He grabbed a weapon from the safe and left home. Ron didn't get far. At the nearest intersection, his car crashed into a tree. Unfortunately, he did not survive, and strange clues were discovered by police officers. It turned out that a shot had been fired from the weapon Ron took with him, as well as his blood alcohol level being 1.5 times over the limit. It was not possible to determine when exactly the shot was fired. Mary claimed that her husband left home completely sober and did not even drink on holidays. Despite finding inconsistencies, the police recognized it as an accident. A few days later, the anonymous person sent letters demanding a thorough investigation of accident of several people. Mary became subject to anonymous harassment and in Seguin accused Paul Freshwater of this. Freshwater Denny et his involvement into customation denide. After that, the mailing of letters stopped. It seemed that the anonymous person had tired of their evil game. 6 years have passed since then, and Mary managed to keep her job. One morning, as usual, she was driving the school bus when she noticed a threatening message on a road sign for her daughter. Mary jumped out of the bus to remove this sign. On another sign, she noticed a small box attached to it with thin string. The woman took the box and sat on the bus, heading further to the school. At home, Mary cautiously opened the box and horrifyingly noticed a gun inside that was supposed to shoot her when opened. Fortunately, the mechanism of the box didn't work, and she reported it to the police. Investigators discovered that the serial number of the weapon had been carelessly filed off. The police managed to restore it, and detectives identified Paul Freshour as the owner of the gun. The police immediately went to Paul's house. He denied his guilt in what happened. According to Paul's words, this gun had belonged to him, but had been lost long ago. The policeman asked him to copy a text from one of anonymous letters for handwriting comparison. In their opinion, there was similarity in handwriting, and charges were brought against Paul. The court hearing took place in October 1983. Freshour had an alibi, but despite that he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Paul insisted until last moment that he was innocent, but no one listened anymore. The townspeople hoped that this nightmare would finally end. Time passed. The presumed blackmailer served his punishment, and had almost no contact with outside world. However, the horror of Circleville continued. The residents started receiving letters again. In one letter, the anonymous person accused prosecutor who handled Ron's case for murdering his lover. In another letter, a policeman who seduced minors was accused. The anonymous person demanded immediate investigation into each of these cases. The fact that someone sent out letters again didn't concern court, and Paul wasn't released. The postmarks on those anonymous letters were from Columbus City, but Paul served his sentence somewhere else. Paul Freshour was released in May 1994. That same year, the letters suddenly stopped, but story was far from its resolution. Later, it turned out all accusations described in those letters were true. Unknown author knew more than an ordinary person. Who this anonymous blackmailer was and what his goal was remains unknown to this day. There are numerous discussions on the internet about this topic. Some users speculate that rejected colleague of Mary, David Longberry, was the author of all messages. Others believe it was Karen, Paul Freshour's wife. She had one motive for it: revenge against her already ex-husband at that time. The truth is still unknown. Remember those letters in which anonymous person accused judge and prosecutor of serious crimes. All turned out to be true. The prosecutor indeed killed his secret lover, and the policeman repeatedly committed crimes against children. Moreover, Mary's colleague, who also worked as a bus driver, assaulted an 11-year-old girl and went on the run. It turned out that the unknown blackmailer really knew much more than an ordinary person should. But it was time to ask the main question. Who was this mysterious anonymous? And what was the meaning of his actions? There are plenty of versions on the internet about this matter. Some of them seem absolutely illogical. Others fit perfectly with the events that took place. And only one version seems so plausible that it makes it possible to solve this horrifying story. Let's remember Mary David Longberry, a colleague. After she rejected his advances, he could have become angry at her and decided to ruin her life. The first letters were mainly focused on Mary's affair. Only a small part was dedicated to other town residents. Ron always believed that Longberry was the author of those letters, but he had no evidence for it. The call received by the Gillespie family on August 19, 1977, could have been made by David himself. And for Ron, it became the last straw. A person who rarely drank alcohol could get drunk for courage. And at some point, he decided to talk face-to-face with Longberry. However, the amount of alcohol in his blood indicated that Paul must have been very drunk, and this could be the cause of that fatal accident. However, this theory does not explain who and when fired a shot from Ron's gun. But here is where things get interesting. Another person may have sent subsequent letters altogether. Karen Freshwater, Paul's ex-wife. Moreover, she might have written those creepy messages on road signs and placed her ex-husband's gun there as well. Her motive is very simple. After their divorce, she lost custody over their children and roof over her head. And all this time she sought a way to take revenge on her former husband. When David Longberry started all these letter incidents, Karen saw a perfect opportunity. Remember that witness who saw a Chevrolet car and a suspicious man next to that very road sign where Mary found the gun? According to the description, this person was very similar to Karen's new boyfriend, and his relative had a car of the same make and color. But that's not where the coincidence ends. Once, Karen asked Paul's sister to borrow a typewriter, since she supposedly planned to write a book. This request greatly surprised Paul's sister, as at that time the spouses were in the middle of a divorce process. But Karen insisted, and took the typewriter. And believe it or not, some of the anonymous letters received by residents of Circleville were written on that typewriter. All these facts seem too suspicious to be just a coincidence. It can be said with absolute certainty that Paul had no opportunity to write letters from prison, which means he was truly innocent. Karen hated him with all her heart and sought any opportunity for revenge, successfully managing to send her ex-husband to prison for 10 long years. If we stick to this version, Longberry and Karen plunged an entire town into real chaos, all for their personal gain. Their actions brought fame upon a small quiet town worldwide, something they themselves probably never expected. But most importantly, he managed to avoid any punishment while an innocent person's life was destroyed.